Despicable Me and Minions are both kids' franchises, however there are plenty of references and jokes designed specifically for adults to catch.
La bougie!
Want to find out the incredible details in these movies that only older viewers noticed right away? The villains in Minions: The Rise of Gru, known as the Vicious Six, are all unique and creative, but one of them has a little secret hidden in his name: Jean-Claude. Only those familiar with action movies from the 80s and 90s will realize that his name is a clear reference to Jean-Claude Van Damme, one of the biggest action stars of those decades. But this reference isn't random. Van Damme himself actually voices the character, making it the movie's way of paying tribute to him. Every Van Damme fan must have smiled when they caught this reference. So get ready, because another Cinewave is starting. Some details are only understood by adults because they reference older things, but others involve more mature content. So mature that when we realize what's happening on screen, we start wondering if we're still watching a kid's movie. Want an example? Just look at Gru's mom, Marlena, who has a rather interesting preference when it comes to men, specifically young men. In Minions: The Rise of Gru, poor Gru walks in on her having a session with a skinny young guru, but from the way she behaves, it looks more like the two are dating. The worst part? She calls him her new guru, meaning there were others before him. Even decades later, Marlena still enjoys being taught by handsome young men, as she gets two rather charming instructors in Despicable Me 3. One of the best scenes in Minions: The Rise of Gru is when Master Chow, who seemed like just an ordinary old lady, suddenly unleashes her kung fu skills and takes down an entire gang with ease. The Minions are absolutely amazed by this. Actually, they seem a little more than amazed, maybe even a bit smitten. This becomes even clearer when Gru's little henchmen try to convince her to teach them kung fu. Acting like the world's greatest ladies' man, Stuart walks up to her, talking in a flirty tone, even puckering his lips. At that moment, he was trying to charm her, but it didn't work at all. He got punched in the face right after. Since the Minions movies take place between the late 60s and early 70s, they are packed with references from that time. References most kids wouldn't understand. After all, if you're a kid today, your parents might not have even been alive in the 70s. One such reference is something only someone born near that era would catch. In the movie, there's a little rock with googly eyes. This is actually a toy called a pet rock, invented in 1975, which became a massive craze. It was a simple, silly idea, but it made its creator, Gary Dahl, a fortune, even though he was broke before coming up with it. Another really cool reference happens when the Minions put on some very stylish yellow jumpsuits. Their outfits look exactly like the one Bruce Lee wore in The Game of Death. It fits perfectly with the context since the Minions had just learned Kung Fu. Younger audiences might not have noticed this since Bruce Lee doesn't have any recent movies. He passed away at a very young age. But what's interesting is that his iconic jumpsuit has been referenced in many other films and shows, like Kill Bill, a violent action movie where the main character wears a very similar outfit. I bet Bruce Lee would have loved to meet the Minions. And if you'd love to be friends with the Minions too, drop a comment below with #friendship. Speaking of past celebrities, another legend who got a subtle nod that kids probably missed is Evel Knievel, the legendary stunt motorcyclist known for his insanely epic jumps. When Kevin is speeding on his bike, he zooms past a motorcyclist and then pulls off an amazing stunt on a ramp. Evel Knievel might be awesome, but even he can't compete with Kevin. When young Gru goes to the movies with his little yellow friends, you can spot a movie poster both outside the theater and on the walls inside. It's for Jaws, a film that was actually released in 1975 and quickly became a horror classic. That same movie is playing in the theater Gru sneaks into, since we can hear the sounds of a ferocious creature and even a woman screaming, "Shark!" He's definitely not old enough to watch a movie like that, but hey, we're talking about a supervillain. Following rules isn't exactly their thing. But don't follow Gru's example, okay? If you're too young, make sure to watch these kinds of movies only with your parents' permission. When young Gru is invited to an interview with the Vicious Six, he has to enter their secret base, which is hidden underneath a record store called Criminal Records. And here's the clever part, Criminal Records is a double entendre. Since it's a music store, it could mean that they sell criminally good hit records. But since this place also hides a secret lair for supervillains, the name also refers to the other meaning of criminal records, as in the police files listing crimes someone has committed. And given how many crimes the Vicious Six have pulled off, their rap sheets must be ridiculously long. When young Gru heads downstairs into the hidden lair, he comes across a bunch of tough-looking villains waiting to be interviewed. Most kids probably focused on the villains themselves and didn't notice that one of the characters is reading Mad, a famous humor and parody magazine from that era. Just about every pop culture icon has been featured in Mad at some point, usually in some brutally funny parody. The magazine no longer releases new editions, and the most recent thing it got was an animated show, which is already 15 years old since it came out in 2010. So even the youngest people who know about Mad are already adults, or at least teenagers, at the very least. In this same scene, there's another reference to something only adults would recognize. This time, it's one of the villain's appearance. He's big and strong, wears a white mask, and carries a chainsaw on his back. If that doesn't ring a bell, it's a clear homage to the horror icon Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Jason has become a horror movie legend, but since his films are rated for adults, and there haven't been many new ones in recent years, most kids didn't catch this reference. That said, a few sharp-eyed kids might have recognized the tribute since Jason is such a famous character and has been referenced in plenty of other popular cartoons. So, were you one of the ones who spotted it? By the way, you know what we just noticed? You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our daily content on the best animated movies of today. One of the weirdest things about the Minions is that they sometimes end up in some pretty questionable and even borderline adult moments, things that don't always happen when they're at the center of attention. In the first movie, where they're the main characters, something really odd happens when the Queen knights Kevin. The crowd of minions starts celebrating, but two of them decide to celebrate in a very different way. One just grabs the other, and they start kissing each other as passionately as possible. Since they're in the middle of a huge crowd, most people didn't even notice this detail, and the few who did were definitely adults or had eagle eyes. The scene is a reference to how many movies end with two characters kissing after overcoming a big challenge. But still, you can't deny that the minions can be pretty suspicious when they want to be. But it doesn't stop there. They have multiple suspicious scenes. In this one, a minion just casually sits on a printer without pants or underwear to take several pictures of his own butt. And to make it even weirder, he's doing this right next to his two friends, laughing with them as they check out the pictures. At least this time, they seem to be doing it just because they find it funny and not for any other reason. Still, most adults watching this will immediately realize how strange it is to take photos of your own butt and then show something so personal to your friends. Only someone as crazy as a minion would have the guts to do that. Despicable Me 2 ends with a wedding scene full of awesome references as the minions decide to sing and dance like old school boy bands. Not K-pop groups like BTS or TXT, but the American boy bands from the 90s and 2000s. During the performance, they sing YMCA by Village People, and to top it off, they even dress up like the band members. Any adult familiar with the band will instantly recognize the reference, since Village People were famous for wearing over-the-top outfits in their music videos and concerts. But the Minions also show up in outfits that look a lot like the ones worn by the Backstreet Boys in their iconic performances. Besides Jason Voorhees, another horror movie character makes an appearance in Minions, but this one is even older, so only those who are old enough to remember the days of black and white horror films would have caught this reference. It happens during Scarlet Overkill's speech when a fish-like man appears in the audience and stands up. This is actually a reference that not even all adults will understand. Some might think it's a nod to the character from The Shape of Water or even the Fishman from Hellboy. Meanwhile, kids, poor kids, will probably assume it's some character from SpongeBob or something. The ones who will truly get this homage are the elderly, or adults who love classic horror films, because this character is actually a reference to Creature from the Black Lagoon, released in 1954, a film about a fish-like humanoid that lives in a lagoon. This is one of the many classic horror films produced by Universal Pictures, just like the original Dracula movie. And since Illumination, the studio behind Despicable Me, is owned by Universal, this is basically a little self-homage. Pretty cool, huh? The video's coming to an end, but we've left 2 more amazing videos on your screen, so you can keep having fun. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!